is us being live right now on the internet.
Nice.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tapcaf Transmissions, the only Star Wars podcast that is regretting going back to this opening bit. I'm Corey. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Justin EckhartsLadder. How are you doing tonight, Justin?
Usually you don't regret the things you say to me until the next morning, but this time you regretted it halfway through the sentence, Corey.
Okay, so I did come clean with you this week about something that's been bothering me for a while. Should we open by me coming clean on that here in the public forum? I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast before. But,
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Well, do you want to set up the controversy first?
I don't even remember the controversy.
Okay, well, the whole issue, which I think came up on the podcast at least a few times, was whether Victory Celebration or
Yub
Nub
Nub
was better.
Yeah. No, okay. Sorry. Continue.
And Eck is a noted Victory Celebration stan. So these are the two...
That's not going far enough.
Okay,
I'm anti Yub Nub.
Okay, well, I'm getting there, but these are the two songs that are at the end of Return of the Jedi. I guess the original
One's
versions...
a song, the other is a little fucking collection of...
Great podcast audio. But
Great
yeah,
job,
so
John Williams.
Yub Nub is at the end of the original release of Star Wars. It was the end of the last song of the movies. He just wanted to get home at that point.
Yeah.
But,
Yub Nub. Yub Nub.
Yeah.
Yub Nub. Dum dun 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 dun.
All right, no,
That's
actually,
I'm
I'm kind of turning around on it now, kind of.
Yeah,
so Victory Celebration
continue.
is the much better one that's at the end of these special editions, and Justin has been long on the strongly anti-Yub Nub train, but people in chat or people on the internet would try to gaslight him into thinking Yub Nub was better, and for a while, I told him that I too thought Yub Nub was much better, but then I was editing a clip a few days ago, so I had to listen to both, and I'm like, oh, this is trash. I can't keep living this lie. So,
okay, I'm glad you got that off your chest. You've re-secured your way into heaven now. So congratulations.
That's how that works.
Yeah,
right, well,
that's how that works.
The actual topic of tonight, which isn't important anymore, but we're going to be talking about Andor episodes 4 and 5. We talked about episode 4 a little bit last week. This will be full spoilers, full episode. So if you haven't seen Andor episodes 4 or 5 and you don't want to be spoiled on anything, then don't listen to this yet. Come back later.
Thankfully, it's I don't. How would you spoil Andor episode 4 and 5?
They're planning the heist on the dam, and Mon Mothma has a daughter.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
It's spoiled.
Yeah.
A daughter who doesn't like her very much.
Yeah. So Andor episode 4 and 5. Let's just start off general impressions. Corey,
do we have any news first? I don't think anything has come out. There's been like a Tales of the Jedi poster confirming that it's coming out on the 26th, I think. I think it's the 26th. Don't quote me on that.
Oh, I got something I kind of want to talk about a little bit.
All right. And
one of my prior battles. But yeah, go ahead.
Next week, we will be talking about Star by Star. It's a chonky one, so you might want to start reading immediately if you're going to keep up on that. And we will have special guest Ilkin from Kings and Generals once again for our Star by Star breakdown. But go ahead. What do you...
Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned this a while ago, how I got into a fight, a spat online over Star Wars calendaring. Remember that?
Yep.
My take on this ridiculous take that 0 BBY and 0 ABY are one calendar year with the Battle of Yavin taking place. They said it took place like 4 months through it for some reason. As if all of these times actually existed, and they decided that the thing that the calendar is based around would take place 4 months through the 12-month year.
Right.
Anyway, you guys may or may not remember that, but anyway, that was my argument. Has always been no, that's garbage. It's the 0 point. It's the epoch. So once 1 year after is a year, and then it's straight like that. Anyway. There's a new book coming out called Star Wars Timelines. And I've been very eagerly anticipating this book, which comes out in January, because I figured it might finally, Jason Fry is writing it, I believe. I figured it might touch on this issue a little bit. And when checking some preview pages, I found, in fact, that although it doesn't address this quite as I would have hoped, it does kind of take a stance. So in Star Wars canon now, and for those who don't know, BBY and ABY means before the Battle of
No,
Yavin.
Andor didn't explain it. We're not explaining it.
Okay, fair enough. We're not explaining it. Anyway, it's changed now, apparently. So the year before the Battle of Yavin is now 1 BBY. There's no 0 BBY anymore, which I think makes complete sense. And the year after the Battle of Yavin is 0 ABY, and then once you hit a year, it goes over to 1 ABY. So there's no longer a 0 BBY in Star Wars canon, and I think that makes a lot of sense.
Wow, they killed an entire year? That's ridiculous.
Or an entire 3 months, if you believe that theory. But yeah, for me, this is the most sensible way to have it, right? Because for one, it's not an in-universe calendar system. It's something that we use. It was based on originally the Star Wars books, and I think I have one right here that has it. I think I got Edge of Victory Conquest, which I think has it. Yeah, so as you can see in the original books, it didn't originally say BBY, ABY. It would say 77 years after, or not 77 years after, 77 years... 7 or 11. That's an 11. I was going to say, what happens 77 years after New Hope? It says 11 years after New Hope. So it used to be after Star Wars or before Star Wars. It moved over to ABY and BBY to give it, I guess, greater context. And yeah, I think it makes the most sense this way. What are your thoughts on this, Corey?
I agree. I did a more boring Star Wars calendar video this week, but I've always supported you in this. I'm glad you're vindicated. And I think we're all happy for you, is what that comes down to.
Yeah. The one thing people argued, which I still don't agree with, but I agree with more, is that there shouldn't even be a 0 ABY, because our real calendar goes from, 1 BCE before Common Era to 1 CE. The difference is, again, this is an out-of-universe calendar, and it's explicitly in reference to years after something. So to have something that happens a week later be 1 year after just doesn't make sense for somebody reading a calendar out of universe.
I don't know. I kind of prefer having 0 on either side, but that's just me.
I don't think it makes sense for something that's a year before, like a year before. For me, like when I read a calendar, I read it based on like almost like checkpoints, like you go over a checkpoint, and then so you go over the checkpoint of 1 year before, and then it is that until it hits the next checkpoint.
But I see it as like aging in each direction, right? So
okay,
I see it as like, okay, we're at 0 years before the Battle of Yavin. Now we're 1 year out before the Battle of Yavin. In the same way that I'm 32 now, but if I were looking in an age mirror, or I'm not 32, I'm 30. But if I were looking in an age mirror, then I'd be 31, I guess. If I was going the other direction. So to me, it's more intuitive if 20 years after, like if 20 BBY and 20 ABY are exactly the same amount of time before or after the Battle of Yavin. That makes more sense to me.
Well, I mean,
there's also
exactly 20 BBY and exactly 20 ABY would be the same amount of time. But I do know what you mean. Like if you're exactly 20 years before or exactly 20 years after, then it is exactly that. But I do see where you're coming from.
There are some places where they'll describe like what we'd call 0 to 1 as your age. They say you're 1 that entire time, so your age is shifted a little bit. So I would prefer to be consistent on either side of it. But.
Okay. All right. Good talk. We won't stay on this too much because I'm sure some people find this extremely boring. I'm sure some people also find it very interesting.
They're listening to a Star Wars podcast. What the fuck do they expect?
Yeah. Let's talk about Andor. Do you want to start on episode 4? Well, did you like these as much, more or less than the first 3 episodes? I know it's kind of hard to say. It seems like they're doing these kind of in 3 episode arcs. But what are your thoughts so far?
I've generally liked the Ferric stuff more than I liked the Ferric stuff more than the Aldani stuff. But if you were to ask me 2 episodes into the Aldani stuff, into the Ferric stuff, I probably would like what we've seen so far out of Aldani more. So if we're looking strictly at the first 2 episodes of each set, I probably like episode 4 and 5 more than 1 and 2. And how 6 compares to 3 is probably going to be the big change there, or the big determining factor there. But I do like the the elements that Mon Mothma brings in.
Yeah.
Like I like that kind of subplot and having Luthen in a bit more, though he wasn't in episode 5 really,
He
other
was in
than
just for
yeah,
one
the
scene.
one scene. So I think we're probably going to get more from him in the next episode. But I like the B plots a lot more now.
Mm-hmm.
How about you? Where are you?
No, I think I agree. Episode 3 was so strong. It's going to be interesting to see whether they can whether they can kind of meet those expectations. I hope so. But yeah, Coruscant was good. I really like Coruscant. Feels a lot different in this show versus the prequels. Something I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I think it's on purpose because it's like we're in Coruscant now when it's Imperial Center. It's not like the glittering jewel of the Republic anymore.
Well,
even though like arguably it wasn't that at the end of the prequels. Now it's like, yeah.
Whenever we've seen it in the movies before, it's like we're spending time with the Jedi High Council, the Supreme Chancellor, and where we are now, it seems like she lives in like Cyril and his mom live in the works or something. So it makes more sense that it's not going to be quite as glitzy as looking out the window at 500 Republica or something. So I think it really works for what the show's doing with it. It's still really cool environment.
I think it looks good. Yeah,
and we get to see Star Wars cereal. So what else could you want?
Yeah. We saw cereal. We've seen earlier on. We saw the takeout noodles. It's been a
blue cereal, blue milk, blue noodles.
I haven't seen too many people talking about this, but there's a Meiluron in this episode as well. From I think that was first in the Rebels. I don't remember if Meilurons were in the Clone Wars as well.
Meiluron?
Remember, it's that little. They're the little fruit. There was an episode where like Hera sends the gang out to find Meilurons on Lothal, I think.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I remember like market stuff.
Yeah, it was.
Was it also in Bad Batch? Was that what Omega?
Yeah, I think it was in Bad Batch. Apparently, it actually came from. I'm on the Wikipedia page. Apparently, it was in Wedge's Gamble as well. So,
all right, we got to do a reread of Wedge's Gamble now.
Yeah, I would be happy to.
Right, who's gonna get to the clip first?
Well, I was thinking about doing one on Meiluron. I'm like, are people gonna care about that? I don't know, maybe. But
see, I try to ask myself that question, but then I'm so off on everything. I just do it anyways, and sometimes the shit that I think is gonna be no one's gonna care about this, but then everyone does, and then the stuff that I think everyone's gonna love this, then no one does. So like. People didn't want to learn about R2's girlfriend.
Yeah, I thought that one would do well.
Me too, especially because I blurred the thumbnil a bit. It was suggestive.
Was that from the Great Heap?
Yeah,
where they've got the droid harem.
Yeah.
I've
been trying to watch droids and Ewoks
jerking each other's little fucking with their what are they called? Those little hands they got.
The grappling arm, or not grappling arm, the interface arm.
Yeah. I did a video a while ago on. I think it was on the Great Heap, so I was just like, I'm gonna sit down and just watch it.
Yeah,
and I don't regret it.
I like droids a lot more than Ewoks. I don't know if that's a hot take, but Ewoks
I don't think so.
Almost unwatchable. Droids you can kind of appreciate for it's just silly enough, but it's got a bit more to it.
It's got A-Wings in it. It's got I agree. Ewoks also has, if you're listening right now, Ewoks has also one of the strangest theme songs of all time.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard it before? It's like
it was stuck in my head for about 3 months, and it's just left. No. Stop it. No. It just left, and I can't remember it right now, and as soon as I remember it, I'm gonna go back. Stop it! I swear to God, I will hang up this call right now. Oh no, it's coming back.
God damn it. That was enough to do it.
Stop it, please. I can come back from this still. Please don't do it anymore. Andor. They've got fruit. They've got blue cereal, blue milk. There was blue milk and non-blue milk in this one from the Drays.
There was depression, which was cool. Glad that's canon now.
Is this going to be like the whole breast article on Wikipedia as well, where it's depression and appears in Andor episode 5? Star by star traitor.
Anything with art, or anything with C-3PO. No, that's the anxiety article.
I think C-3PO is a little bit depressed.
I'd say often he is, like, not when he's like, I think most of his time in the prequels he was probably pretty happy.
Like if I go to Wikipedia right now and I look for alcoholism, does that exist? Nope. God, why is breast still the top trend? It's always the top trending search in Wikipedia. It's breast, Thrawn, Andor, Revan, Darth Vader, Yoda, Sith, and Darth. Those
Are
are
you
the
sure
top.
you're not looking at the others like you also viewed?
No, I'm looking at top trending searches in Wikipedia.
Oh. Okay. Oh, that's because I see Luthen, Mon Mothma, Canary, and Scarif for some reason.
Well, that's I'm on the search page.
Okay.
Not top trending pages, top trending searches.
So people be looking up titties, basically.
Yeah, maybe by my referencing it like 5 minutes before or 5 seconds before, enough people went and searched it up to skew that, but I don't know.
I don't know about that.
I don't think we have quite that reach yet.
No.
But how have you been feeling about Cyril here? Do you have any ideas, any theories on which character Uncle Harlow is going to turn out to be?
I mean, I definitely thought he was somebody in the Empire for sure. But I don't know. I expected Cyril to be kind of born and raised in this corporate kind of system. So his mom being on Coruscant was a bit of a surprise to me, and I'm kind of not sure. But yeah, I think if anything, Harlow he could be. Someone was like, maybe he's like the used car salesman in the family, but I think he's probably someone who actually has a little bit of power. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So I got the feeling that like his family probably moved to Coruscant.
Mm-hmm.
Like his mom, maybe his uncle was there for some other posting before. Maybe came up in the Clone Wars or something, and then she moved in there, and that's why they're so gung ho on the Empire.
That makes sense.
But
because she's got a pretty decent apartment as well. I mean, considering like how bad it could be on Coruscant, she's probably pretty. Yeah.
I got the feeling that they were in kind of the government housing kind of situation.
I mean, I don't know. Like they could see the sun, which, like, occasionally at least. I think that means they're at least like. I don't think they're rich or well off, or maybe like lower middle class. Like they're not in like the Coruscanty slums. Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, the part of the problem is we have literally no frame of reference for what a normal person's house looks like in Star Wars, especially on one of these kinds of planets. Like we have Outer Rim, yes, but like Core
Dantooine,
World,
where it's giant. We got Dantooine, where it's a giant like estate for each of the families, and then you have Kyle Katarn's,
where it's a hole in the desert.
Yeah, and then Kyle Katarn's father's house, which is massive enough that there's a whole level. So in Dark Forces too. So I don't know. And anytime they said Uncle Harlow, I just kept thinking of Uncle Hawko, as if Rune Hawko was the uncle. Like I didn't know he made it off Mustafar. Good for him.
For whatever reason, whenever they say Uncle Harlow, I've been picturing Dex. He's getting a job at Dex's diner.
That would be epic, right next to the skater lady and the server droid.
Well, so what happened is the server droid was actually his mom's, like his grandparents' droid growing up. So his mom thinks of her as her sister, and then Dex married that droid, making Dex Cyril's uncle. I think I cracked it.
I think you cracked it. Did you know the waitress at Dex's diner's name is Hermione or Hermione? From Harry Potter. That. Yeah. The blonde one. Like I think she skates around. I can't remember, but
you might be thinking of Rosie from the Jetsons.
Maybe no. I mean, no. Not thinking of Rosie from the Jetsons.
As you often do.
Actually, no. I'm looking at she made it to one of the visual guides, and she doesn't. She doesn't have. She just has boots on. So
it's too bad for her.
Yeah.
So do you think Cyril's going to end up back in Imperial service? Do you think he's going to end up with the rebellion? Do you think he's going to end up in like civilian job from this? It's got to be his uncle's got to be like working for the Empire in some capacity.
Yeah, I think what might happen is the Imperial ISB agent, I forget her name. I think that she's going to continue kind of trying to get her claws into the situation, and she might somehow find him, like that he has firsthand knowledge, or she might read the reports or something and be like, hey, like maybe there's more to it. And I do think it's funny how everyone's like, oh, they've never seen the Empire so competent, when like they're not competent at all here. Like in a way, like on the ground, sure, but the ISB is completely ignoring the fact that there actually is a rebellion coming.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're thinking that Deidre is going to find Cyril and kind of appeal to his, I guess, his idealistic belief in the Empire and get him on board in this. Like, I can't see Uncle Harlow not being Imperial in some way, like getting him back in the power structure there. Like, the term Starfucker's kind of coming to mind, of not exactly Star, but like...
Oh, yeah.
Where it's more like power instead of Star.
Cog fucker?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can see it. Kind of like Mon Mothma's husband.
Yeah.
Do you think, is he just like a stay-at-home dad, or because initially I thought when in episode 3 I was like, okay, or no, it was episode 4 rather. I was like, it seems to me like he kind of could be integrated into the Empire himself. But now it just kind of seems like he's a member of like high society.
Yeah, I think his position is more just consort,
social,
like senator consort, where Chandrilla seems to be like a very traditional hierarchical kind of situation, where Mon Mothma's appointment as senator either came from her background or comes with some other expectations about how they operate, that in almost royal family-esque way. And then Perrin, because they got married super young, like 16, I think, in their weird Chandrillan customs of arranged marriages that happened right away. So yeah, it seems like his job is doing functionary stuff, just being at those events, and he likes the company. So the company being Sly Moore and Ars Dangle.
Yeah, kind of a shame we missed out on that dinner party. But it looks like we've got another one coming up anyway.
Did we miss it? Did they say it?
Yeah, it happened. It happened. Damn. Yeah,
I missed that.
Yeah, so did I. I mentioned it in my review, and a bunch of people commented. But I wasn't super excited anyway, because I think we knew there was going to be Sly Moore there, and what's his name, Masameda. But Ars Dangle rather. Was Masameda too? Maybe I think she said the Grand Vizier, which I think is
no, it was something about. She did mention something about the Grand Vizier. Sorry, Grand Vizier, but I don't think...
is that how you say it? Vizier?
That's how she said it, I think.
Oh, okay.
But it was more like
Vizier.
That. But it is. Don't let Mon Mothma tell you otherwise. But I there was something mentioned about it, but I don't think it was that he'd be there.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, I wasn't that excited because you could see the guest list, and people did their thing, and they were all just basically crew members for the names. Okay. So, like, seeing Sly Moore... like kind of cool, but like I don't know.
Well, even if the guest list was just crew members on that, they could have had different characters in the actual scene. Normally they wouldn't do that, but
yeah, that's true.
But that now means all those people are
made.
Canon. So there's Wikipedia articles for all of them, I'm sure now.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the fact that Mon keeps getting used as like a name on its own? I've never been comfortable with that, with people calling her Mon. It has to be Mon Mothma.
Everybody in that whole scene in Return of the Jedi, to me, was always just so weird. For one, I always saw the Mon Calamari as looking like old men, because they wear those, like, partially because of like the striped pants that they're wearing, and like there's just something about Admiral Akbar in the... I'm just trying to look up a picture to see exactly. So yeah, there's something about Admiral Akbar in the original movie that just screams like, I'm a 70-year-old man.
Yeah, it's the loose jowls.
That's probably it too. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just like the hospital white he's wearing. I don't know. But I honestly kind of felt like there was always something really cool and weird about all the Alliance people. There's like also lots of aliens. You can see like the Dracelians and others. It's also Admiral Akbar's chair as well. But like I almost felt like the Alliance High Command we see is kind of like their version of the we see like the Emperor's posse as well. So I always thought that they were weird, and yeah, I kind of the same way in that I always imagined Mon was some sort of like title, like Mon Mothma was like I don't know, like Moth, like same with like Moth, you know what I mean? So it is a bit weird as well. Yeah,
I don't know that I ever thought of it as a title. Like maybe
yeah,
I
but you
kind of
weren't
did,
six.
but
Sorry.
that was very aggressive. But
Yeah,
I don't know if I thought of it as like Mon Mothma as one name, or if I thought of Mon as a title, or if I thought it was kind of the reverse, where like Mon was the family name and Mothma was the given name. I don't know. I could. I don't think I could even get behind people calling her Mothma. It has to be Mon Mothma. It bothers me when that happens in the books. Bothers me in the shows. If she says it, it's going to bother me. The subtitles do it. It bothers me.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why Mon Mothma, Mon Calamari, they all got along. I've solved it once again.
They did a great job with the casting, Genevieve O'Reilly, especially considering she was originally cast 20 almost. I mean, she probably was cast like nearly 20 years ago. Yeah. The movie came out in 2005. I mean, she was probably cast in like 2000 and whenever. So they got lucky with her.
Yeah.
But I guess the age pretty much works out the same as well. So, I mean, not quite. She's aged more in real life than she has in, but yeah.
But I mean, once you have Andor already, what do you?
Yeah, she was also made to look
Everyone's
older.
Ages are just out the window.
Yeah, did we talk about that? There's some fuckery going on with Andor's age as well. Because at first it seemed like they retconned his age. Now, I mean, it's hard to tell because he also seems to be lying quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, one line did kind of stand out to me in this episode where I think it was Skeen that told him made a mention of the kids as in the other people that are with them, like Nemik. And if Andor, Cassian isn't supposed to be that old under any timeline, really. Like, it seemed like they were going more writing that line based off Diego Luna's actual age rather than Andor's age, but that his age is up in the air either way.
Well, I mean, the only thing we know for certain is that the shots where he goes into the cruiser or the downed ship take place before the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Probably a year or two before the Clone Wars. Which is 22 BBY. He looks to me, it's hard to say because when it comes to kids, like there's like literally a 5-year gap on either side where like they'll just call it because no one really cares. You can cast a 10-year-old as a 7-year-old or a 13-year-old as a 10-year-old, and they'll. I mean,
you have Dawson's Creek where they're all 35 and playing 16-year-olds. So, and every other show from the 90s.
That's why I always liked Degrassi, because Degrassi didn't do that. They get kids to play the kids, and it's just seems more real. But anyway, so he's at least his age there, plus the Clone Wars, plus maybe a year or two. So yeah.
Either way, Nemik and them can't be that much younger, so it was a bit of a weird.
Well, I mean, Cassian could be like
25.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a little older, right?
Like the downship scene would be almost 17 years before, and like there's no way he's younger than 5.
Oh right? No! I asked Kelsey. I was like, "What do you guess the age?"
He appears to be 10.
Yeah, he's 10 or older. Like the actor has got to be 10 or older. But again, it's like they could say he's meant to be 7 there, and it's like okay, like fair enough. Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I mean, Diego Luna, I think like late 20s in this show, and then early 30s in Rogue One. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So
do you think is he a colonel, lieutenant, base commander guy? What's his rank?
I think they said colonel.
So do you think he's being a bit too cute with how he did the scheduling there, where he kind of pushed
I
them
actually
into
don't.
complaining? Like, could he
No,
have
I
just gotten
actually
away
don't.
with giving them the reduced schedule and not making a big deal out of it?
I think he wants plausible deniability because I think he wants to do more damage.
Right.
Like it seemed, because I was wondering that exact same thing. So for those who haven't seen the episode for whatever reason, they're planning this big heist on this Imperial facility, and there's kind of a weak spot. And the guy who's working for the Empire, their mole, he kind of sets it up so it looks like he wants to station more troops in there, which would make the heist obviously much more difficult. And then the troopers are like, "No, please! There's this big meteorological event. We really want to go see it." What?
Sorry. I just got the notification for the drinking stream on X2, and Charlie just called it drinking stream with a thumbnail that just says,
I made
oh,
that
you
thumbnail.
did that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I did that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was like, I know you're busy. I made you a thumbnail.
Well, the title of the stream is also just
Yeah, I know. Stringing extreme.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
maybe he is lieutenant. He might be lieutenant. But yeah.
I don't know. I thought like he already has the authority to make the schedule as sparse as he wants. He could have just started with the sparse schedule, not played the trick of like, oh, you haven't painted the thing yet, you all got to work, and no one would have been the wiser. But
I think that's fair. It's just maybe an extra little bit of deniability.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why I'd get voted out on Survivor. I'm not willing to go that extra mile of double bluffing there.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so you think they're gonna, obviously the heist starts tomorrow, or not tomorrow, starts next episode, and then
that's what I wanted to ask you as well.
I think that's where we're going.
Yeah, I was gonna. Did I ask you that? Like, I because there's that shot of the arrestor cruiser, and it seems like it's weird because in the trailers you can see the event that's going on. Like you can see him flying the ship. It also looks like he's gonna be stealing a TIE fighter at one point. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if next episode was a bit of a departure, sort of like episode 3 was in a way, in that almost the entire episode takes place on that planet and is the heist. And I think fans will be very happy with that. And I admit, I was initially a little bit critical of the episode format. There was an article from the Rolling Stone, I believe, and it was like the curse of the 12-hour TV show, where it's like a TV show, the TV format's been so successful for a reason. Simply chopping a 12-hour movie or an 8-hour movie up into 12 parts, there's some weakness there. But I really like the way they've been doing these 3-episode arcs.
Same.
And I think it's going to really pay off with the next one.
Like one of the things with Obi-Wan and with Book of Boba Fett is that they kind of both got criticized for being a slow burn, and then people tended to pick up more of them on the end. At the end, or be more forgiving of some of the other production, not issues, but some of the production value stuff in those later parts, because it was starting to have a climax. Whereas Andor, even though it is the longest show, it's using that time to set up these smaller arcs really well. And so like some of these B plots can be a slower burn, but they're able to spread those out over more episodes. So like even though we've kind of finished the Ferrix stuff on its own, we do have that continuing in with what Deidre's doing, what Karn's doing, and seeing...
Yeah, we're definitely going back there, I think.
Seeing the garrison be set up. I assume like the last arc is probably going to be back on Ferrix or something. I don't think it's going to be the third. I think it'll be the fourth.
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. It seems like there's going to be some sort of revolution, but it's definitely interesting. And I think you're right, and that's the fact that these arcs work so well is because it's the best writing of probably any like actual character writing of any Star Wars show. I think by far, it's pulling off like making these background characters interesting. And one thing that I'm very happy with, and I've been talking about this a lot on my videos, is how the dispute within the rebel group was handled. There's this dispute where Cassian, unbeknownst to the group, is not a pure manifesto writing rebel, although we kind of know he'll give his life for the rebellion later.
Yeah.
He's in it for the money. he is also, we know, he has
Yeah.
also been fucking with the Empire, and he does it because he hates the Empire.
Yeah, we know he's leaving out some stuff there in his conversation with Skeens.
Exactly. It would have been very frustrating if they had taken an episode to have the group tear itself apart because of, Diego, or because of Cassian not telling the full story, especially where we do know that he is a rebel at heart. So if it had been a whole thing where Arvel is like, he hates Cassian and they hadn't worked it out, then that would have been really frustrating. However, the show did the smart thing, and not only did it bring it up, it dealt with it, I think, in a realistic way. And Cassian also got ahead on things and was like, listen, I'm here for money. Like, deal with it or don't. And I thought that was really refreshing, because sometimes TV shows, one of my least favorite tropes is like we're going to fight because I haven't communicated properly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is setting up really well the kind of difference in why Cassian's there and everyone else, where like Cassian is still very clearly not fighting for something, he's fighting against it. And I think we're going to get more of what he's fighting for either in this season or in the next, where like I think that's how his sister will start to come back into play a bit more. I don't know that his sister will come back up in season 1. Like we haven't had a mention of that ever since the first episode where that's who he was looking for. But obviously the flashbacks were setting up both how he got taken in by Marva, but also his family dynamics, I guess. So I feel like we're definitely going to get more of that, and I think that'll tie into more him building up a reason to fight for something. Because Nemec is currently the one that's serving for the laying out what new world we're trying to build, rather than just I hate the Empire because they suck.
Yeah, he's like the Marxist on campus.
Yeah, we get Nemec plus Mon Mothma for that.
Yeah. I read an interesting theory, which I don't think holds water, but it makes sense. People were saying, is it possible that Luthen is Vel's father? And they do have different last names. We do know their last names. It's Luthen Rael and Vel Sartha, I believe is her name. They look somewhat similar. Luthen seems very, very nervous about what's going on, like almost a little more so. And I will say the way that he kind of lectured her on being a leader did kind of remind me of the way a parent would kind of try to teach their children, like, tough love in a tough moment. When he's like, I thought you wanted to lead. I don't think that's the case, but I thought it was an interesting theory.
I don't think that's true. I think that would have been hinted at a bit more strongly in his scenes with Mon Mothma about what's at risk and everything, where it seemed like he was focusing more on the risk to himself or the group as a whole, rather than the idea that he had like someone that close to him in the group. And like I think part of that just comes from any new character being introduced being like theorized that they're related to anyone else in any way. Like I saw Vel as Luthen's daughter, I saw Vel as Mon Mothma and Perrin's daughter being thrown around, which that one made less sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, after the mention of like, oh, Mon Mothma has a daughter and we hadn't seen her yet, so I think that just turned into going for whatever.
Someone in chat says, can you also talk about Vel and Cinta? It's just like, that's the case where like there's not really a fan theory here. The show says they're banging pretty much, like they're in some relationship. They're sharing, does he say sharing blankets? And then
if you're wondering what her situation is there, she's already sharing a blanket or whatever, if that's what you're thinking.
Yeah,
she's already sharing a blanket, if that's what you're thinking.
And when Vel,
I don't think they're asking what they're up to like sexually. I think what they're doing
they're not
for
going
the plan.
With the strike team. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of interested in both, but
unless what you're suggesting right now is like clearly what they're doing during this plan is they're just going off and banging.
Yeah, I really like the moment though where when Vel is discovered to have kind of hidden a little bit of Cassian's story, they what's his name asked Cinta right away, and she's like, I didn't know either. Oh, that was good. But I'm kind of curious about what they could be doing. I think it's possible that they are trying to destroy the thing. We saw some, like, I forget where we see imagery of it being destroyed. I forget, there was something, but Maybe it was like a hologram. I don't know. I think it's possible they're trying to set charges or something, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed they were scouting, but maybe we'll get more explicit thing with that.
Yeah.
It's unclear yet.
Well, it says that I think it's. Don't they say we'll meet you afterwards, like after the mission? I thought they said
had a thing to do. I was a bit unclear on the timeline for that.
Because he was like, "What are you guys doing?" And
I think that was
don't worry about it.
They had to do that night, and then they were gonna link up the next day. I don't know if that would be linking up before or during the heist, though.
I mean, when they were doing their gun drill or their marching drills, they weren't in it, and he asks, "What are you guys doing?" But maybe they were talking about.
Yeah. Well, they're getting in a different way. They have to be because like the guys are apparently just walking in. So
well, yeah, they're going to be recruits, and we can actually see a little bit of that in one of the trailers. I'm trying to pull it open now, but one of the trailers does show Cassian and them kind of standing with Imperial stuff on. I'm just looking.
Yeah, I mean, Cassian said that was his strategy for doing any of this. Like he's the one who told Luthen, they're so fat and stupid, they just walk right in.
Yeah. So. Okay, I got two questions. For one, how many people are surviving? And two... Three. Okay, so who's dying then?
Nemec absolutely dies. Skeen dies to save Cassian.
Okay,
I might have his name wrong. Do I have his name wrong? Is it Skeen or is it something else?
It's Skeen. It's Arvel Skeen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think he probably dies to save Cassian. I don't think there's any chance that Nemec gets out alive because like the young idealist has to die. I think Cinta and Vel survive.
I think there's a very, very real chance it's only Cassian getting out. And like I think there might be the opportunity. Because I'm just kind of looking at the trailers now, and it's kind of interesting to look at the trailers and see like, okay, what's missing and what's left. Like I'm looking at the first, like I'm thinking maybe there's an opportunity because we see there's a shot where Cassian's getting in a TIE fighter, and you can see the sky is all like the events beginning. I'm kind of wondering whether he has the opportunity to escape by himself or take the harder opportunity to escape with the information. He chooses the information. But I'm also looking at the official trailer, and there is a scene where you can see him and the four guys standing with uniform on, and obviously the women aren't there. So,
well, Cinta and Vel have to be alive at least long enough to get married, because we know what happens to Cinta afterwards.
What's that?
They get married, and then Cinta becomes Cinta Vel. Know where I'm going with this? We've seen another show with someone who marries a Cinta Vel after the fact.
No,
she becomes the new canon version of Cintas Vel, Boba Fett's wife.
Okay. You took me somewhere I wasn't expecting, I'll admit. I'm looking at the trailers, and there's some interesting stuff in here. Like I see there's also a shot of Miro, it's Deidre, right?
Deidre, yeah.
Yeah, there's a shot of her on Ferrix with Death Troopers, and there's more of an Imperial presence. There's like actually stormtroopers walking by, or actually they're clone troopers walking by, which is odd. Yeah, there's clone troopers walking by. She's got Death Troopers.
I think the Death Trooper scene, that's on Ferrix, right?
Yeah, isn't that what I said? Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I missed you saying that.
Yeah.
I don't pay attention to you that often.
It's okay. So yeah, very kind of very curious about kind of where the show is going, and not a lot of hints either. And then of course there's that shot with Luthen where he's destroying the arrestor cruiser. I'm kind of wondering if that's going to fit into the heist. Like, is he going to be providing cover, like if the mission goes wrong?
Well, he's the one thing we know he's doing is monitoring all these communications or whatever. So is he just going to kind of get worried at the end and fly over to help extract because he's not able to handle the heat at that point? Or I don't know.
One thing that's also interesting is in that scene, he's shooting down what looks like a TIE bomber, but is actually not. It's like one of those TIE shuttles that looks exactly like a TIE bomber, but doesn't have the bomb chute. So that's interesting. Yeah,
the kind that I think that was in our tabletop campaign that Charlie blew up with a stick he threw at it.
Oh yeah, epic moment. Another question that kind of came up after this episode. They talk about an Imperial. There's more. You can see a bit of the heist at the end of this trailer as well. Anyway, they talk about an Imperial engineering officer going to Ferrix. Do you think that's someone we know? Is that a new character? Imperial engineering officer from Coruscant is what they say.
I don't think it'd be an existing character for that. Is there someone you have in mind for it?
I mean, Krennic is like the engineering officer, but I believe on one opportunity they also describe him as young. I'm not positive on that.
But Krennic would already be involved with the Death Star, right? Like that's kind of his deal. And we know that the Death Star stuff is already going on, and they've mentioned Scarif. So I don't think Krennic would be pulled away for that.
That's a good point. But I mean, he would be an engineering officer. Like that would be his kind of...
It feels like they're talking about like a much lower ranked person than Krennic.
I agree.
Super high up there.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's something else going on Aldhani, like it could be, like that could be because they talk about how it's kind of in the middle of nowhere and close to everything. Like maybe right. Maybe they're using it to ship parts for the Death Star or something. I mean, again, I don't think it is Krennic, but I wouldn't be shocked. It could also be Galen Erso too, but again, I don't think that's likely. I think that's less likely.
Yeah. I don't know. It to me, it'd feel like unless they clarify a bit more on what's going on and why it's important, that if it were like it has to be something very important if it's Galen or Krennic, especially Krennic.
Well, I just think the fact that they've met, like they're hinting at this. And I think it's important because they also show the engineering shuttle actually arrive too. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see it. Now it's not it's another point against Krennic is it's not Krennic's special shuttle type, the pointy one. It's just a regular Lambda, but
yeah. Like we know that they were doing the inspection though. It sounds like it's a more routine thing rather than a high level project thing. Yeah. It doesn't seem like anything that they're building on the planet is that important. Even if the planet is an important distribution or an important kind of hub.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I just want to claim I'm right if it happens.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, you were right about Luke, and I thought it would be Cal. So, or no,
did you really think...
thought it would. Who did I say? No. Charlie said Cal. Or did Charlie say like Star Killer?
Yeah, you probably said.
No, I think I said Ezra.
Yeah, I think you said Ezra.
Okay, yeah.
I felt really certain it was going to be Luke, but I thought the most likely after Luke was someone we don't know.
Yeah.
Nope. Anything else you want to chat about? No. Really good, 2 good episodes. I'm just trying to think of other kind of main talking points. If there's
if you were to take the series now, assuming episode 6 lives up to episode 3, doesn't blow it away, doesn't drop super far beneath it, and that's the end of the season. Where is Andor ranking for you in the pantheon of live action shows so far?
Probably right after Mando season 1, I think. Because for me, I think my ranking would be Mando season 1, Andor very close. I think when Andor is actually out, it might beat Mando. But if we were just to end next episode, I think there'd be kind of a lack of payoff.
Okay, so yeah, like assuming that there weren't plot threads somehow hanging, because it's obviously a twice as long season. But like, the overall quality so far, and
yeah,
how you've enjoyed the show.
See, like I really love the serialized version of Mando, where it's like a Western.
Yeah,
and it's like Adventures of the Week. I really love that. So that would be first, and then I think this, and then I think Mando season 2, and the first 3 are very, very, very close. Then Book of Boba Fett, and then Kenobi. And if we were to put cartoons in there, or animated, I guess, I would probably put after Andor, Rebels, very, very close, and then after Mando season 2, maybe after Book of Boba Fett, I'd put Clone Wars. Which would be controversial, I know. That's hard. I forgot about Bad Batch. Bad Batch had a better first season than Clone Wars. I think Bad Batch is going to be better on a per episode basis. but I think it might not be quite as good overall, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I probably put it below Clone Wars, I guess.
Okay. I think Andor for me is solidifying itself in number one.
Nice.
Even at that point, like I was pretty much there after episode 3.
Yeah.
It's not that I think the style of it and the tone of it just I like that more than Mando,
That's totally fair. They're
especially
like,
season 1.
I think they complement each other so well, though. Mando in the show, where like they offer pretty much the exact opposite thing, but they're both very high quality. Like Mando is like the dialogue, not that important. It's a lot about feeling. It's a lot about cool locations and cool characters and, you know, seedy underground stuff. It's not meant to be realistic. I think it works out with that. This is the complete opposite.
Yeah, and one thing that has kind of annoyed me a little bit is seeing people say like, "Oh, now every Star Wars show, this should be what every Star Wars show is," and I think that's the wrong thing to take away. Like my hope with all the announcements of TV shows that we had back in the day was that we were gonna get a bunch of different styles and genres, and I think like if you're talking purely quality bar, then sure, I'd love everything to live up to Andor, but I think Mando does that, even if it's not a show I like as much as Andor for what it's doing. And I think like there's some benefits that Andor has visually from the fact that it is a bit more mundane in what it's showing. Like the environments are things that you can film real world a bit more believably. And I think I mentioned it last time. Like if Tython wasn't Tython, then where they filmed Tython would have been fine, and Andor can get away with that because of these unknown locations. But if Mando did that for everything, then it'd be the same kind of letdown that Tython was to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think that's a good point. What I would say, again, I don't want every show to be like this, but I would like if there was always a show like this. You know what I mean? Like I want there to be another Andor after Andor. Like whether it's the exact same, like maybe not, you know, Rebel era spies, but like something like this. Like I think the Rogue Squadron show having a tone like this could be really interesting. And a lot different than what people are expecting, which is, you know, like a bombastic fighter movie.
Yeah, and I think like Mando and Book of Boba Fett, even though they're kind of running concurrently with each other and are a bit more tied in, do show that they're willing to go back to the same style for a show, like once one isn't going on. And same thing with like Rebels, Clone Wars, Tales of the Jedi, Bad Batch. I think those are all kind of in the same family, even if there's some differences there. I just don't want everything to be on and being the same thing.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree.
I don't know where I'd put Kenobi in with all of that. I almost feel like it's kind of it is to Andor what Book of Boba Fett is to Mando, where it's a bit more in the same style, but not executed quite as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Kind of funny you mentioned Book of Boba Fett, because I've been rewatching it, and I feel like the first 3 episodes of Book of Boba Fett are exceptionally well executed, actually. I mean, there are issues, maybe too much in the way of flashbacks, but like I thought they did great, especially the one with the train heist. And then I think they almost tried to do too much, where they went too much Mando, and you know there was just not a long enough season to justify moving away for that long. But when it comes to Kenobi, yeah, I agree. Where definitely tried to take this tone. I think in Book of Boba Fett, the issue was more with story, where that was kind of a little bit missing. In Kenobi, it was just kind of, for me, it felt like it was just execution overall.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's gonna cover episodes 4 and 5. I think. Anything else you want to get to before we get to questions?
We're living in. It's very exciting to have a Star Wars show this good come out. I feel like this is the show. This and Mando season 1 are the 2 shows for me that have really justified kind of the or fulfilled the promise of Star Wars on TV. And Mando season 2 was great as well.
And Rebels. I mean, those are all good.
Yeah, and Rebels.
And Kenobi was okay. Book of Boba Fett was okay.
Yeah. Clone Wars 2003 is getting no love.
And droids, we already talked about that today.
Ewoks.
Yeah. All gems. I swear to God, man. Better fucking stop. All right. Our first question is from Adam, who says, Dark Greetings, do either of you think it's kind of a waste how Andor is focusing on the ISB but not using Yularen as a character, or do you think that the ISB members we're getting are only a small part of the leadership? I think it's the latter. I think
Yeah,
having
I
Yularen
don't even
be
think
a...
this is the leadership.
Yeah, like it seems like a... Well, I think Partagaz is relatively high up, but like the conference room we're seeing isn't the upper management conference room. It's
No.
Partagaz and his subordinates in a smaller
Yeah.
area.
I think
Uh,
Partagaz probably has like 10 meetings with people like that a day. Like
yeah.
these are like this is like sector 1A, like 13C, and like, he's got to lecture these people cuz otherwise there's no real way to explain why, this one incident is, worthy
Yeah.
of, like, I
Like
feel like there's probably other, sorry, go ahead.
he mentions that other guy, Evan, the one who went to Ferrix, as having like
Mm,
6 sectors or systems under his control. And
mhm.
there's, if it's sectors, there's thousands of sectors.
Yeah.
So that kind of gives you a sense. And it seems like he's one of the higher ranking ones in that room. So that should give an idea of like how small scale that is. And I feel like if Yularen was there, it'd be in the category of like unnecessary cameos where a character's just there and makes the galaxy feel small. Whereas like Mon
Mhm.
Mothma, it makes sense that Mon Mothma is the person there for Mon Mothma's plot, rather than trying to cover the entire galaxy and everything. Right. So I'm
Yeah.
happier without him.
Yeah. I do love it. I really like Yul. I think he's an interesting character, but I agree.
I wouldn't be opposed to him like showing up in some capacity later, but having him play such an active role and being like the in the position Partagaz is in, I don't think
Mhm.
that would be necessary.
Yeah, especially where Dedra is like they say she's been there for a year. Like she's pretty green, so it wouldn't make sense to
Yeah.
have such a high ranking ISB agent or officer. Yeah.
And on that, so thank you, Adam. But on a similar note, we have one of the questions from Joel who says something I think about Andor that gets a bit overlooked is the amount of older experienced officers we see in the Empire dealing with the younger ones. Shows the
Mm.
Empire goes on both in canon and legend, showing how the loss of the Death Star kills off a good chunk of the senior Imperial leadership that gets quickly replaced by the next generation, and how in canon at least, the loss of the second Death Star leaves the Empire with nothing more than the radicals and the dregs of their officer corps.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that in a few weeks with Lost Stars. So I don't think it's worth talking about that point too much, but I do like the different types of Imperials. Like Dedra is not a Clone Wars Imperial like many of the older ones
Yeah.
are. She's brand new. It's interesting.
Yeah, we're kind of seeing the divide between the more experienced and the ones that are kind of just getting in,
Yeah.
young and idealistic, even if their ideals are kind of questionable.
Fashy.
Yeah. Next question comes from Christopher, who says, one thing I recently came to a realization of through the last episode was how in canon the ISB are basically the space SS and the rebels' main enemies in espionage and intrigue, while the Imperial Intelligence is just the flavor fodder. In Legends, it was the complete opposite. How do you feel about the switch?
I don't really agree that in Legends it was the complete opposite. Like the ISB did have, like, people think that the ISB is, and this is partially because, like, if you go back to the old Imperial source book, the ISB plays a really big role, and it's
Well,
not
they also
just,
said the ISB is really only in the source books, and I guess like in the wider universe that does set it up, but in stories it is a bit more intelligence.
yeah, that's I think that's probably fair. I guess my point is if you read the source books, the ISB is like people think for a while the ISB is mostly meant to root out Imperial traders or turncoats. Part of that's because Lost Stars featured an ISB agent, or not Lost Stars. Aftermath had an ISB agent, but like a lot of what ISB did was like trying to get rebels, like trying to figure out where rebels were among the populace and doing things like re-education and so yeah, I think I wouldn't really say it's I think Callus is a pretty accurate ISB agent to the source book. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think part of it is also just people are more likely to say ISB now, whereas in a lot of the stories that put people in Imperial Intelligence, they were just saying intelligence because that's a simpler catch-all rather than caring too much about specifics of any divisions or branches or whatever of government. So like with Armand and Isan Isard,
mhm.
I think it's more just when those were written, just, oh, we want someone espionage, just say intelligence.
Yeah, I can't even really remember the difference of the. I'm trying to look at like one of the sheets right now. Yeah, I honestly can't even really remember the difference between how it all works out. To be honest, I guess maybe intelligence would be more for. Is it more that intelligence is like against an active opponent during the middle of a war or something? I'm not really certain.
Hmm.
Like the source book has all of these really fancy graphics. That's like, okay, this is the Ubictorate, and under the Ubictorate is X, Y, and Z, and then this is Imperial Intelligence. But it's all a bit, and then there's like Componor as well.
Yeah.
So it's I maybe he's right. I can't remember, but the ISB, they're not just like they're kind of operating how I expect them to, I guess.
Yeah, I think like ISB and Legends does show up in several of the novels, especially in the Imperial era. It shows up less after Endor, but like they're in Allegiance, they're in other books that I can't think of the names.
Allegiance was
sure
the one I was gonna. They are, because that's where like they're the defectors, right? Or
Hand of Judgment in
Hand of Judgment? Yeah, isn't that Allegiance? Isn't that Allegiance
that's,
1?
Yeah, that's an Allegiance, and
because a big thing about that is like when they're actually defecting, and they do have ISB officers on board. So
yeah. Next we have Seamus had a question about a prior debate we had on the force choking Gamorreans in Return of the Jedi, saying you two, especially Justin, have talked about why you think Luke used a mind trick on the Gamorreans rather than force choke. Well, it's left ambiguous in Return of the Jedi. I'm confused as to why you think Luke mind tricking the guards into thinking they're being choked would be less dark side.
I didn't think that.
Yeah, like we weren't thinking they were either getting choked or being mind tricked into being choked. We just thought there wasn't any choking involved at all, and they were just kind of being tricked into stepping back. But
yeah, I thought he was just commanding them out of the way.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, so we weren't.
I understand why people don't, but that's just what I always thought.
Yeah, like the distinction we were making wasn't between either choking or thinking they were choking. It was either choking or just being told to step back. But Seamus had another question about Andor. And he says, it's been a long time since I've emailed into the show, but it's good to be back. I've not seen much discussion of this online, but episode 4 of Andor had a rather explicit allegory for the Highland clearances. A big part of the Highland clearances was the massive amounts of evictions of tenant farmers in the Scottish Highlands, leading to a compelled emigration of a large portion of the Highland population, whose people were almost entirely Gaelic-speaking. Then he also mentions a lot of them going to Canada in going to Glasgow, and also communities in Nova Scotia. I think
where I came from.
I think our first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, actually came over from that as well. And he gives a bit more historical background and says, my question for you then, do you think the writers in Star Wars should include historical allegory like this more often in their stories? And if so, which historical events would you like to see the writers use to tell their messages? After all, George was inspired by the Vietnam War and Richard Nixon when he made the OT, and he used historical influences to tell his message about how democracies die in the prequel trilogy.
I don't really know any in particular that I'd like to. I kind of was not super familiar with the history of the Highland clearances, even though, yeah, that is. I mean, that's kind of where my roots come from, Cape Breton. So there's the connection there. But I mean, I like it. It does seem to be pretty on the nose when I did some reading, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And I'm shocked there's not a bunch of nerd YouTube channels complaining about how Star Wars is all political now. I wonder why that is. But yeah, I can't think. I guess I'd like them to cover that time when that guy got a fly in his mouth outside of was it Nebraska, and he goes, what does he say again? He's like, he gets the fly in his mouth. I have no idea
what you're talking.
You don't know the one I'm talking about? He's like, goddamn flies going in my mouth. Shit, country ass fucked up town. So funny. But yeah, that I'd like to see them cover that event somehow.
What about the Wendy's chili finger?
Yeah, that could be good. I'd like them to cover the fly in the bottle, the famous law case. What's that called? I can't remember, but yeah, there's I don't know. I'm not enough of a history buff. That's a better question for you, Corey.
I do like that there's use of historical events and allegories, and I think a lot of that depends on the particular creator involved in whatever it is.
Hmm.
So I don't think there's any like specific events I'd like to see other than I think the uh defenestration in Prague. I think that could be funny. We kind of get that with Palpatine down the shaft,
Yeah, I
but
was
if we
gonna
can
say.
see some people getting thrown out of windows, that would be great. Like I think authors bringing their own like what's important to them and their own experiences is always important. Like
I think we're talking
when
about Gary Hoy when he jumped out the window.
but I, any story is going to be better if someone has something to say with it, and if it's more rooted, then that's going to be better as well. So sometimes that will be from historical events, sometimes that'll be from other factors in their life. But like the elements of the prequel trilogy that land end up having a lot of those real world inspirations. The elements of the original trilogy that land have a lot of those inspirations, and that's what people tend to find relatable. So the more grounded it is, even if it's like it can be different levels of obvious that it is an allegory for something or related to something. The
Yeah.
fact that this is filmed in Scotland makes it a bit easier, and when they cast a bunch of Scottish actors for it, makes it
Yeah.
easier to make that connection. In a book, it's a bit harder to see like what the explicit connection is. But a lot of those comparisons do exist in Star Wars, whether they're intentional or not. In some cases, like we talked about that a bit in the New Jedi Order,
Mhm.
where like I was talking about the kind of global political culture at the time or groups within the United States that
Yeah.
kind of relate to some of the themes in the NJO. And I don't know if that was done intentionally by the authors, but there's always going to be those connections.
I would like to see. I want to see the Protestant Reformation of the Jedi. Like who's like Martin Luther, like putting the 95 or how many theses it was on the steps of the Jedi Temple. Like, you like that?
He's just Swedish now.
Well, I was trying to make it like, I was trying to throw like an apostrophe in his last name, so like
So he's Chiss.
Luth apostrophe R, and it was like Martin with a Y.
We're already getting that though. We're already getting Elzar Mann and his liberalization of the Jedi Order.
Doesn't work though.
No?
Like I guess like I want them. There's a point where like the Jedi completely lost their way, like without turning into Sith. Like when the Sith weren't there, the Jedi like kind of like we got with the Pius Deus stuff in Legends, but more than just one entry in the Essential Guide to Warfare.
Yeah. I mean, I I don't like that you just dismissed Elzar being that out of hand there, but fine, we can argue about it more on the next
Elzar's
article.
almost never out of hand, if you know what I mean.
That's why he wasn't granted the council seat.
Mm-hmm.
You may sit on this council. Please put on some fucking pants.
Sit only on the council, no council members.
To be on the council but to not be jerking it, it's unfair. It's unheard of. It's an outrage.
Put your cock away, Master Man.
Obi-Wan just shaking his head in the corner. That's not all he's shaking.
I saw the funniest post on Reddit where it was like, "Did Obi-Wan really have to be standing like this when Padme was talking to Anakin? Just he's up on top."
Not supposed to be choking. We're gonna have such a talking to once you get on this ship.
Good stuff.
One thing that's always bothered me with all the Mustafar stuff is like Obi-Wan saying, "Well, then you are lost," and it's like he already murdered the fucking group.
All the
Full
kids
of
are dead.
Wasn't that a big enough sign?
Like either way, there's like 4 Jedi left. So
Yeah.
like, what do you fucking mean?
Look, we need to come together. We can't be stuck in the past right now. We need to come together to rebuild the order. We can't be playing the blame game. It was 5 whole minutes ago.
Yeah. Live, laugh, love.
Well, thank you, Seamus. Our next question comes from Joel. who says Andor lists Alliance as one of the many anti-Empire groups operating at this time, along with the Partisans and Separatists. So my question is, does this mean the Alliance to restore the Republic is already a thing, just not officially out in the open, or is it just the secret name of Bail and Mothma's forces? I've seen some hot debate around this topic, and curious to get your insights on this.
That's a good question. I saw, who was it? I think it was 1138 pointed out too that Alliance is capitalized when they have their toast, which it shouldn't be if Rebellion is capitalized.
Yeah.
They say for the rebellion when if it's just, the act of rebelling, it shouldn't be. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know the timeline of that stuff really. I don't know what Starkiller's been doing.
Well, we know where his armor is, so
yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of unsure on that. I don't know if it's referring to like the actual Rebel Alliance or if there's other like groups that are out there. I hope we get a bit of a clarification on that because
we almost certainly will. There's definitely some stuff because we hear like how Mon Mothma and them are trying to figure out where the money goes. You know what I mean?
There's definitely some activities going on, but how official any of it is TBD.
Yep, TBD.
All right, and finally we have from Michael, do you think that Rogue One could basically fit in Legends if you assume Galen Erso developed only a part of the plans and that Scarif is Tuprawa in a Moraband Korriban kind of thing?
Is that the place where Kyle Katarn goes in level 1 of Dark Forces?
I think so. It's one of the many sources of Death Star information.
I mean, it's not really the same. I can't remember how he gets the Death Star. Like, I've played Dark Forces. He kind of just walks in, shoots everyone, gets it, and leaves on his ship. So it's kind of a different activity. So
yeah, and everyone died on Scarif. So unless Kyle was not showing properly, I don't think any of the major details really fit.
Yeah, I think the Death Star plans are also like I don't think the mistake is intentional in Legends. Also, the thermal exhaust port. It's just like you need to exhaust your thermals.
Yeah, I kind of like when it's just a necessary part of the design rather than this was put in. But oh well, I like Rogue One enough to forgive it.
I guess the flaw is like the thermal exhaust port shouldn't do that, but it does.
Well, it should be an exhaust, so it should be pushing out the proton torpedo rather than sucking it in all the way to the core.
It's always so weird how it's like just flying and then whoop. It's like, is that supposed to be the targeting computer on the proton torpedo that does that, or?
I think that's what I've always thought. That's why I thought the computer was necessary. Otherwise, you just down the hole. But oh well.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's like a Yuuzhan Vong miniature black hole in there.
And Michael also asks, do you think it's worth to watch Andor for an old canon fan who's mostly disinterested in new canon? Personally, I like the show on its own, and from what I've already watched at least, but it's kind of annoying when you know that this is officially the Rey Skywalker universe and not the one where later EU events like Force Unleashed, Thrawn Trilogy, NJO, Legacy of the Force, or Legacy would take place. I think that's getting a bit too caught up in like needing to like every detail of that comes later to enjoy the story for what it is. Like there are plenty of people who dislike the new Jedi Order as much as some people dislike the sequel trilogy or dislike the Swarm War or Legacy of the Force or Fate of the Jedi. And
I hate the Legacy comics.
Yeah, and we strongly dislike Legacy, even though that's the culmination of everything. Like that doesn't hurt my enjoyment of the stuff that happens in the meantime. In the same way that I'm going to die someday, allegedly, and yet I try to enjoy my life while I'm here. So I think you can enjoy the stories for what they are, and maybe that'll give you more of an appreciation for some of the other stuff. Maybe not, but I think you can still enjoy Rogue One or Andor without having to find a way to reverse shoehorn that into Legends to enjoy.
Yeah, Rey hasn't been in the show yet, so
we don't know. Maybe she.
I mean, yeah. Andor Andor's a pretty self-contained story right now. A lot of people are comparing it to like an old novel. So
well, maybe Vel is Rey's mother, or Tim and Bix are Rey's parents.
Rey could be so lucky to have Bix as her mom. Definitely not Tim.
Yeah, I think I actually did a video explicitly on that of like can you enjoy the new stuff if you don't like the sequel trilogy in particular or any other later element? And I think like largely my answer is usually yes.
Yeah, I agree.
But that I think is going to do it for tonight.
Yeah, I think that's all I got. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us out. That's how new people find the podcast. Rate it 5 stars. And yeah, thank you.
So we will be back again next week, star by star, with Ilkin from Kings and Generals. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll be doing some Berio card, I think, tonight in about 7 minutes over on youtube.com/ECKSTOO, as well as twitch.tv/Corey Loses. Thanks again for watching, and remember, live long and prosper.